Salama, salama family. How y'all doing tonight? So glad to have y'all in the building. I know it's been a minute since I have been on live. Y'all know I've been posting some videos and stuff throughout the last couple of weeks, but it's been a couple of weeks I think since I've been on live. And I just came across this information the other day, and I felt like it was so important to address, especially coming out of our last prayer, our live prayer for the 714 movement, and it was the army's diaspora. And when I saw this video, I said, you know what, this is right on time. I think it's right on time for where we're at. So I'm going to be doing a response video to content creator Tim Swain, and his video that he put out. I guess it's been less than a week, or maybe it's been a little over a week that he put out, and I'm going to give y'all a chance to see it tonight. Hopefully, my sister Kathy will be joining us because my sister is from Nigeria. This is a video specifically going to be addressing Ghana, but since she is from West Africa, hopefully she'll be joining us tonight to give her perspective as well about this video. But y'all know, before we get into it, I want to say my shout outs to the family. So peace and blessings to you all. Peace and blessings to you, Camp 2 player. Shalom to you. Coach Natisha, is good to see you. Yes, shout out to all our mods, all of our members, all of our partners. Shout out to all of y'all. If you are a member, then y'all know what's good. Y'all know we do our Tuesday thoughts. Y'all know y'all get some additional insight. So if you want to partner with us and join with Ashonda at Large members or with us on Patreon, then definitely please do so. But shout out to sis Coach Natisha in the building. Want to say peace and blessings to Sister Nicole as well. Glad to have you here. Angie, love y'all. Peace and blessings to you. Always good to see you, sis. Brother Darnell, so glad to have you. Peace and blessings. Want to give a it's going on now. It was acting up a minute on my end, but there it is. Stephanie McMillan, peace and blessings to you. Good to see you as well. Sister Lynn, I think you're up here. Let me see where you're at. Where you're at, Sister Lynn, peace and blessings to you as well. Del J, glad to see you. Thank you so much for stopping in. And Ellen F, hi, how you doing, sis? Good to have you here. Joe Nuff, grace and peace to you. Salama to you. Robert, so good to have you in here. Shalom. Thank you so much. King Robert Haynes, peace and blessings to you. Mina Miller, shalom, shalom to you. Enosh Ben Israel, shalom, my brother. So glad to have you here. Roosevelt Coughlin, so glad to have you here as well. Sister Anita Reed, so glad to have you here. My sis Ruhama up in the building. Sis was just thinking about you. Good to see you as well. Justin, so glad to have you here. Jay Highstyle, so glad to have you. You Taylor 777. Karis up in the building. Karis, brother Karis up in the building. So glad to have you here, bro. Dre Lee, so glad to have you here. My bro, Eric Tinsley in the building. Grace and peace to all y'all family. So glad that y'all could join us. We're going to have a real good discussion tonight. My sis just got up in the building, so I'm going to welcome her into the discussion. Peace and blessings, Sister Kathy. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
Good.
Shalom, shalom, my sister. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I had a good day. It was a busy day. I've had a busy week, but it's been good and it's been productive. So
Oh
tonight,
yes.
you know what I'm saying? Got to be productive. So tonight we're gonna have a little discussion about that video that I shared with you the other day, and I just think it's going to be a really, really impactful discussion. So before we get into it, I came across another video today. I want to shout out to my sister Elaine because she sent me this other video on Ghana specifically. And I just thought it was so key because let me tell you, the thing about the Ghanaian people is they are a resolute people. They are strong in many ways in their morals. They're strong. Many of them have a great love for the Most High Yahuwah. They just have a wrong perspective, as we did, as a lot of us did in the United States. So we're going to talk about that with the brothers video. But before we do, I'm going to share this video specifically addressing Ghanaian ideals, policies concerning the LGBT community. I want y'all to take a look at this.
Newsday, BBC World Service. Ghana's parliament is set to vote today on what could be one of the world's toughest anti-gay laws. The act, called the Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill, would effectively make it a crime to be gay, bisexual or transgender. Proposals include anyone who identifies as gay or transgender facing possible imprisonment for up to 5 years. Also, anyone who promotes or supports non-heterosexual identities could be put away for up to 10 years. The bill also includes requirements to denounce suspects. Let's talk to Samuel Nate George, Member of Parliament and one of the main sponsors of the bill. He joins us on the line now from Ghana. Welcome to Newsday.
A very good morning to you, Claire, and to your listeners.
Well, it's good to have you on the programme. You'll know the arguments against this, so let's get straight to it. Your critics will say this is a bill that is hateful in essence and is turning Ghanaians against one another. What do you say to that?
Well, that's a very unfortunate reading for anybody, or conclusion for anybody to draw, because this is a bill that enjoys the support. At the last research that was carried out by a private civil society organization, 93% of Ghanaians support this position. Laws are a reflection of what society desires. The UK, for example, has laws that reflect what the British people want. Brexit is a reflection of what the British people wanted. It's not a reflection of what everybody wants, but it's a reflection of what majority of the people want. Majority of the people in Ghana support heterosexuality, and we do not understand why anybody is going to see an expression of that desire to represent hatred. That is what we believe.
Well, let me give you one example then, because one of the ideas in the bill is conversion therapy for people who may be gay, bisexual or transgender. The UN says conversion therapy is torture. Do the majority of Ghanaians support that?
Well, again, that's a questionable thing. I mean, and that's the interpretation that you're putting on it. In the bill, you don't see us say we're offering conversion therapy. Nowhere in the bill is that. You are suggesting conversion therapy. What we discuss in the bill, or what is offered in the bill, is approved medical treatment that is approved by the Ghana Medical Association. And that is the standard in Ghana. The Ghana Medical Authority and Ghana Medical Association approves all medical treatments that are given. So in the bill, there is no talk of conversion
what is
therapy.
That if not conversion therapy against the will of the people who may be gay, bisexual or transgender?
So if you have an intersex person and they're going corrective surgery because they realize, and let's be clear, science is science. Science will determine whether you're male or female when we do a sequencing of your DNA. There is no gender neutrality when it comes to determining who is male or female. Your genetics show which sex you are. And so if you're an intersex person, for example, and there is corrective surgery to help make your dominant gene reflective in your sexual orientation, how then is that seen to be conversion therapy?
Well, because you're going against international law, though, aren't you? If the UN says this is torture, then that is what you are doing. Claire, you are going against international definitions.
Claire, the UN has not said approved medical treatment is torture. You are saying so. The UN does not determine what is medical treatment in Ghana. Ghana is governed by its own laws, not by the UN. And let's be clear, the UN has not made homosexuality a human right. The UN has not had any votes in the General Assembly. In fact, the Ghanaian government has had the occasion to say to the homosexual cabal, if you want to have a vote on this, table it before the UN General Assembly and let us have a vote on it. And then we will be guided by it. But to come in through the window and say that the UN has banned a conversion therapy, nowhere in our bill does the bill talk about conversion therapy.
Okay, is the Pope wrong then? The Pope Francis said last year that he thinks same-sex couples should be allowed to have civil unions. He said homosexual people have the right to be in a family. They are children of God and have the right to a family. The head of one of the largest Christian faiths in the world. Is he wrong?
Well, the Pope has expressed his opinion. The Catholic Church has not taken a definitive decision on that. And let me give you a typical example. The Methodist Church in the UK has said that they're going to allow for gay marriages and all. The Methodist Church of Ghana has disassociated itself with that decision. We are not under that. We're not going to be bound by the decision of that church. This bill is supported by the Catholic Bishops' Conference.
The Bible, Genesis 1:27 says, God created man in his own image. In the image God, he created him, male and female. He created them. If he created man and woman in his own image, then he created homosexuals, bisexuals, and transgender people too, didn't he?
Well, Claire, my bill is not a religious bill. It is a bill on cultural values. But if you want to go into the Bible, I'll grant you that. Bible says God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. He says, for this reason, a man shall leave his mother and father and cling to his wife. It didn't say cling to another man. And so if you want to read the Bible, don't read just one part of it. We can read the Bible and go explicitly. Again, the same Bible tells us that God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah because of homosexuality. So when you want to quote the Bible to support homosexuality, let's be very clear.
Well, I'm not doing that. I'm merely testing your arguments out, as millions of people listening to this around the world would do in my position too. That's my job as a journalist. But we thank you. We thank you very much for joining us on Newsday. Samuel Nati George, Member of Parliament in Ghana, one of the main sponsors of.
All right, that was some fire, wasn't it?
Boy, I tell you, boy, these people are double talkers, man.
Yeah, man. I said, oh my goodness. I know she ain't go there about the word. Well, since you want to go there.
He said, let me school you. If you're going to go there, the same Bible that you quoted also destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. These people are something. Man, I
love that. I love that he just brought that smoke, man. He brought it all the way in
yes.
there. Like, He was like, don't even try it.
Yes.
But his responses to me, that just shows me, how intellectual, how articulate, amazing our people really are. And the fact that what I saw what she did was she tried to pull the colonialist powers.
Yes.
You caught that, right?
They do that all the time in Africa. They do it all the time. And not to cut you off, but if people unsuspectedly don't understand and they get caught up into that trap, but this brother knew exactly what she was doing.
Exactly. Oh, the Pope says, and the UN says. No. What you mean? The same UN that they take their cues from Lucius Trust, the Unitarian publishing company.
All right now, come on.
Come on now. This is a hot mess, but I love that he stood. I love he stood.
Yes.
Yes. My brother Karis was saying in the comments that the 3% don't control the majority, like the U.S. needs to take notes. I love that. I was like, yes, that's exactly right. Because that's what you have in America, where you have this slither of a minority, I think even less than like 1%, if not a little over, the LGBT community dictating to the rest. Like what we see with Dave Chappelle and trying to cancel him. Look, I'm not a Dave Chappelle fan necessarily, but at the end of the day, what the man said was true. Okay. When he said that every human had to pass through a woman, and that's science. All of a sudden, you don't like science when science is righteous, right? When it's speaking the truth.
Science is. The same science that they talk about, question everything. The same science, and it kills me how you believe the same science that you go by, and just like he said, science does not lie. At the end of the day, when your DNA, no matter, even if you change your sex, even if you do whatever you got to do, at the end of the day, when they test your gene, it's going to determine whether you're a man or a female.
That's right. And they got enough sense in their brain to know that, but they're trying to push that colonialist narrative on them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ghana has really come a long way. Ghana is one of the countries in West Africa that have really managed to really pull away from the colonial master. They still do a little bit, but I think the president have managed to really. I mean, I even like what he did with, I think it was the Switzerland with the cocoa, and he was like, no, we're not doing all of that. We're gonna keep our import. We're gonna keep our stuff. And if you want to get, our, cause Ghana is big on cocoa, and I guess they couldn't believe that, the masses couldn't believe that, these people have woken up and said, no, no more.
The
You got to
change.
get out of our country. You've enslaved us too long, and they don't like that. And unfortunately, that's what they're doing in Nigeria. I'm from there. They got the puppet over there, Buhari, in office, and England has them there for a purpose. And that's why Nigeria and is so the way it is. Instead of should have been further along like Ghana, but is the puppet master is still in Africa pulling the strings. They're
Wow.
pulling the strings. They're pulling the strings.
But you see the beginning signs of the changes, and that's really why I wanted to kind of talk tonight about this video that I shared with you the other day, because again, kudos to Ghana for standing up for righteous morality when it concerns our real legitimate sexuality in the sight of the Most High. But when I saw this video from this Israelite brother out here, and of course, I don't believe that he knows he's Israel. He is a Christian, but he is a Pan-Africanist, and put together this video that I thought was so well put together, just showing a lot of the things that he was concerned about as a repat to Ghana. So we're going to talk about this video tonight, because I believe it's imperative for us to have a deeper understanding of what it is that's actually going on the land in the different nations, because West Africa is going to have its own situation, South Africa, North Africa, East Africa. But what he displayed, what he showed, especially with Ghana, in consideration that Ghana is the country whereby we have the right of return that happened back a few years ago. It's important for our people, especially those who are thinking about repatting to Ghana, and know who we are, know the truth, to have a understanding of the dynamics of faith, of walking in the Christian walk, if you will, in that land. So I'm gonna put this video on, and we'll give some commentary on that. Hold on just 1 second. All right, perfect. So let me go ahead and put this video on, and y'all take a listen to this.
Of the history and the impact of the missionary movement in Ghana. The reason I've wanted to do this video is because I've been living in Ghana for about 2 years now. And I've seen so many things that I have context for now that I didn't have context for when I first came to the continent in 2007. For example, when I first came to Ghana in 2007, it was like my cultural imagination was different from the reality that I experienced. And although I couldn't put certain things in words, I knew that there were some things that were off. For example, I'm grateful for the organization that brought me to Ghana. Shout out to the Impact Movement. But I came with a missionary organization. And in 2007, we went all around Kumasi, Sunyani, Cape Coast, Accra, and some other places around Ghana. And when I came around, one of the first things I noticed was the white Jesus everywhere. I mean, I was in shock. It was actually frustrating to see the white Jesus on the trotros, on the churches, on billboard. I mean, he was everywhere. And I thought that it was wrong, but I didn't have the words to articulate that. And then even as a part of the mission that I came with, we will go out to these like very rural communities. We'll put up a big screen and we'll show the Jesus film. And if you're not familiar with the Jesus film, it's like that old film about Jesus and his life. All white characters or mostly white characters. They translated it into Tree or Fanti or whatever area we were in Ghana, and we showed this big white Jesus, right, telling everybody to be saved. And I knew something about that was wrong, but I didn't quite know what it was. So fast forward to several years later, and I began to read more books, especially works by Kwame Nkrumah. and other African leaders, Pan-African leaders, who began to kind of like contextualize the role of Europe in Africa. And so then I began to see things differently. And so the more I began to read, the more I began to understand, okay, this is why some of these things exist. And so this video, the overall goal is really to look at the impact of the Christian missionary movement in West Africa with a focus on Ghana and what it did or did not do for Ghana. So as a disclaimer, I can't go through an exhaustive history and explain every little thing, but what I am going to do is just basically talk about the basics of what happened and how it has impacted how Africans and particularly Ghanaians see themselves. So I'm gonna look at a couple things, right? But before we go into this and talking about the history of the missionary movement in Ghana, the first thing we do is we have to go back way before the missionary movement existed. We got to go back to Rome. And why do I say Rome? It's because Rome, the Roman world, the Western world, the Europeans are the ones essentially who came to Ghana, the Europeans in particular. And so when you go back to Rome, you look at a couple different things. Number one, this notion of Christendom. Christendom is basically when Rome was struggling with its identity, Rome made Christianity the nation of the state. And in order to basically go out and conquer new territories for Christ, it said that Christianity will be the vehicle by which we do that. So as Europe, right, when we go out and we conquer new nations, we will make them subject to Christ. And so what it did was it developed an ideology. Now, this notion of Christendom is not the inception of the missionary movement, but it's deeply entrenched ideas of cultural elitism, religious expression, and all that sufficiently influenced it. And so it was the religion of Europe. And so any territory that came under Europe also was going to get the same thing. And essentially what happened was it developed an us versus them mentality. Let's go out and conquer all these territories for Christ. Subsequently, that's when you see the Crusades happening, right? Going out and conquering these lost souls for Christ or what may have you. The other thing that's important to remember in this time frame is that there are several events that led, or let me say, there were several events that influenced the missionary movement. Going back to Rome and its identity, the notion of Christendom, let's make territories for Christ. Another important kind of like idea or social thing that happened was the Enlightenment, right? So the Enlightenment happened between the 1600s and the 1800s, and it was basically changed the philosophical and moral landscape of Europe. It's all about scientific objectivity, classifying people in the world according to how Europeans saw them. And under this, what happened was you had this idea that Europe said, let's classify people in the world. We're going to start with the highest, most ranking people and the lowest. Europeans obviously viewed themselves as the highest, the most advanced, the most civilized, the most, whatever, right? You went through the schema of peoples around the world, and guess who was at the bottom? It was Africans. And so that's why Africans get viewed as like the evil ones, the ones that are in a deplorable state, the ones that have no conscience, no soul. And so eventually what happens is you have this notion of kind of Eurocentrism, Europe believing that the world revolves around us, this whole us versus them mentality. And the reason this is important because when you look at the missionary movement that happened in the late 18th and the 19th century, particularly in West Africa, what you see is missionaries coming from this type of Christendom, Eurocentric, Enlightenment type of philosophy. So when they came to places like Ghana, what they saw was savages, people who are worshiping idols, primitive people with no soul. They couldn't feel pain. They're intellectually inferior. You know what I'm saying? Even so much so that long term, you saw people doing research on the size of African skulls to see whether or not they had a smaller brain and all this kind of crazy stuff. And so when these people came and they encountered the gods of the African, they just viewed these gods as like, it's not the same God of the Bible. These are some lesser gods who are evil, and these people are, worshiping these gods and blah, 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 blah. The thing that's important to remember is this.
Good day. Welcome to Mo's.
All right, we can pause it right there. I want to get your take on some of the things that he said, Sister Kathy, the brother said about particularly about the way in which it was constructed in terms of the Europeanization in Ghana, the gods, the deities not being the same as those that the Europeans saw. What do you think so far about what this brother is saying in terms of how the Ghanaian or the West African people receive their information about the Most High concerning this European influx? What do you think about that? You got to unmute. You got to unmute.
True. I mean, I will speak on. I can relate to that because Ghana is not too far from Nigeria. Actually, you can actually drive from Nigeria to Ghana, Ghana to Nigeria. So Nigerians and Ghanaians have had this long history of they're interrelated some type of way, you know. So what he's saying with it's the same thing in Nigeria. It's
Wow.
the same thing that the missionaries came to Nigeria, but they came under the guises that they're coming to evangelism. They come in under the illusion that, oh, Africa is this dark continent, is the place of savages, and they have to go make these people that are savage. They have to go make them uh, non-savages. So, but what they did is the Catholic Church. Now, when we talk about Christianity, Catholic people also call themselves Christians. Okay,
Yep.
but we know that Catholic Church is the Catholic means universal. So their plan is a universal. So in that sense of being universal, we have to go back a little bit to the book of Daniel about the beast, the horn, the little horn. You know what that little horn has done over the years. Now, I'm not sure about Ghana, but when I was looking up some research, um, the monks from Portugal actually came to West Africa, probably some in Ghana too, but in Nigeria in the 1400s. Okay, and they were given the unction by they were given okay by the Pope. So we got to go back at the end of the we got to go back to that little horn, you
Right.
know. So and it ties together. So Catholic being a universal, so their idea was to make sure that everybody come under that, they have to, everybody have to be under Catholicism because it's
Right.
universal. So what they did in actuality is they brought their own pagan idol worshiping, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they introduced it to the people. But I remember I was reading an article in 1800 when some of the missionaries went to Africa, Nigeria and Ghana. I'm sure, but in Nigeria, they were amazed because there were certain customs that the people was practicing, which
Mm-hmm.
was customs of the Bible, which is circumcision, on the eighth day,
Mm-hmm.
naming ceremony, different things. And the missionary was like, well, where would these people get this type of idea of
Mm-hmm.
circumcision? Because it's only through the Bible, that they would know this information, you know. So
Right.
so they brought the Catholicism. Actually, what they wanted, and it's slavery. Just really a way is a propaganda that they use for slavery to
Mm.
come in to say, oh, we want to introduce you to the true God that we worship. But remember, Catholic Church worship the pagan. They worship the Mary, the statues, and all of that. So this is what they brought to Africa.
Right, exactly, exactly. So they looked at the culture that was already there of circumcision because we know that the word it's actually oral. It was orally passed down.
Yes, or yes, definitely, yes. Hmm.
And so they looked at this culture and they said, how could they get that from the scriptures? But they don't have the scriptures the way we have it in English. So now we're going to manipulate the scriptures so that we can make them our slaves and put them under the banner of this universal church.
Thank you,
Okay?
thank you.
Okay?
Yes,
We're going to
yes.
listen in a little bit more, see what else you got to say.
When you look at some of these theories that develop, some of these European theories are only a couple hundred years old. But as one researcher said, when you look at the Africans' relationship to God, that's more than 5,000 years old. So Africans knew who God was way before Europeans got there. Africans had an understanding about spirituality, about tradition, and about culture and all that way before Europeans got there. So what happened was when Europeans got there, this is the impact. Many times the colonial conquest and the missionary activity went hand in hand. Not all the time, but many times. And so the underlining goal was this: money, resources. How can we come and extract resources to keep Europe, right, in power, and its territories in power? And at the same time, you had the missionaries that were really going side and side with this. Because what you saw sometimes is the missionaries and the leaders saw that religion could be used as a vehicle to pacify people, to get them to do essentially whatever you wanted them to do. That doesn't mean that this did not come with some resistance, because it did. So you had many people that fought colonial powers and many people that fought the missionaries that came in terms of their ideologies, and they turned away from what they were trying to teach them. The other thing that happened as a result of this was what researchers call cultural genocide.
Now, I want to pause right there real quick, because he talked about how religion was used as a point of pacification. Okay. Now, I did not understand that was essentially what happened in Ghana and Nigeria. That's what happened during chattel slavery as well, using the Bible as a form of pacification so that the slaves didn't rise up. I remember watching Nat Turner, the movie, and how he was only given instructions to read certain scriptures pertaining to enjoying being a slave in the sweet by and by, slaves obey your masters, all of those verses that were used in a manipulative form in order to pacify the slaves and keep them in that state of mind where they would not fight back. But here it is, he said that same ideology was used in West Africa as well. What are your thoughts about that?
It's true, and it's so true, because even growing up in Nigeria, and everywhere you went was it was a Catholic church. I was raised Catholic. I really didn't, as a child, I really didn't really make any sense to me, the rituals, and you have to go through confirmation and all of that. I never really appealed to me. But there are some people in Nigeria, families that, if you go into their home, they have, is a shrine. They actually have a shrine of
Wow.
the picture of Jesus. I remember a couple years ago, my mother passed away, so I went to bury her. On my way back, I stopped over in the city and I stayed with my cousin and his wife. And when I went into their apartment, the place was so spooky. They had the pictures of Jesus, the blonde hair, blue eye. They had the picture where he was the dark hair with the piercing eyes. And all their whole living room was filled with pictures of Jesus, different color here. Just so
Wow.
piercing. And then they have the TV on where they're playing the Station of the Cross, where they go through that ritual, where they go, Hail Mary and do all of that. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I said, what are you guys? I said, you build a shrine here.
Wow.
What you mean? But this is how the Catholicism really, really have a stronghold in Nigeria and Ghana. Because like I said, Ghana and Nigeria are like, sister countries. So it's pretty much the same thing. And it's true. They use that to come and conquer and divide, because they saw the resources of the country. So they have to find a way to dupe these people in believing that they are coming with this religion, of this God. But the people already know, because how would they know circumcision? Certain rituals of the Bible, how would they know that? Like you said, oral tradition, how would they know that? So all of that was all engineered just to find a way to, and that's how, colonialism went to Nigeria, the western part of Africa. And it's usually most of those countries where it's predominantly Christians, like in Congo, where they have a lot of Islamic, Islam is not quite as strong, but Islam is there. But the same people made the Islam as well, okay,
Right.
just to keep the terrorism, just to keep the people oppressed, so they can also divide and conquer. And it's about taking the resources of the land. That's
Yeah.
what that was about.
Wow. That's deep. All right. We're going to listen in a little bit longer.
So when these Europeans came, they attempted to essentially dismantle and remake African traditional religion and basically make it more of a Western type of religion that mirrored European customs, politics, and culture. Right? The Europeans came and disrupted this, and then basically they tried to make Africans into Europeans. The other thing that you saw as a result of this was the whitewashing or the Eurocentrizing of everything. European churches, worship styles, clothing, speaking, dress, greetings, and everything like this. Let me give you an example. I remember when I first came to Ghana, and I said, yo, I want to go to an African church, like an African church where they playing the drums, they acting a fool, because I grew up in a charismatic church. I go to the church, close my eyes, and what do I hear? This, oh Lord, we are. I'm like, yo, am I somewhere in Europe? You know what I'm saying? And so it sounded just like the Europeans, but this is the influence of the Western missionary movement. What it did was it basically tried to remove everything that was African and replace it with everything that was European to basically show that as you are becoming a Christian, you also have to become civilized. Civilized essentially means that you become more and more like us. Some of the other significant things that happened during this missionary movement was the evangelizing process. It wasn't just going out in big crusades or what may have you. It was also evangelizing through education. So that's why you saw a lot of missionary schools pop up. Even so much so that what would happen is sometimes they would take somebody from their family, take them to a missionary school, indoctrinate them with their beliefs, their ideas, their culture, their values. So when that person goes back to their own community, right now they're looking at them like these people are demonic, they're demons, right? Because they've been basically indoctrinated in the missionary schools. And these missionary schools are still around today. And I'll give some examples about how the legacy of the missionary movement still exists in Ghana and some of the ramifications of it. One of the other things that came as a result of this, like I said, there was resistance. So in this time of missionary movement and the Westerners coming here to do all this stuff, you also saw the rise of what's called the African independent churches. The African independent churches, we're not going to go too far into detail, but basically African independent churches said that we're not about that European Christian life. So we're going to create our own style of worship, going back to our traditional religion, and fuse these things to make something that is more like us, right? So there was resistance that happened, but you know what I'm saying? When you have people coming with a gun and you don't have no gun, it's kind of hard. It's kind of really hard to resist a lot of that.
So that sounds a lot to me like the church bombings that our people dealt with back in like the 50s and 60s, where okay, now we have our own, we're kind of pulled away from you a bit. But no, we're going to intimidate you. We're going to forcibly make you go back and be subservient underneath our ideals of how the scriptures are supposed to be interpreted. And we're going to do it with guns. What are your thoughts about what he just said in terms of that? Oh, got to unmute you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's true. It's true, and that's why you have like the some of the Christian churches now, the Pentecostals now, who are pulled away, and most of the Pentecostals, a lot of them came out of the Catholicism, the Catholic Church anyway, So it's I'm not sure. Maybe in Ghana it worked that way, but in Nigeria it wasn't so like that in Nigeria with the with the force, trying to where people try to build build their own churches and kind of break away from that. In Nigeria, the influence was still there, but the people that broke away and started like the charismatic, even within the Catholic Church, they have the charismatic movement. They don't believe in the Catholic teachings, but they're still with the white Jesus. They still have some of the orders of worship, just like the Catholic Church. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but they don't call themselves Catholic anymore. They call some other other names, but it's just a breakaway from the Catholic Church. So in Nigeria, it worked that way that the people was able to, you know, um, have their own churches. Um, um, and the charismatic movement came in, and then the Catholics still remain, but then looked down upon the Christians and the Pentecostals. They looked down upon them, so it wasn't encouraged for people to join. To join the charismatic movement.
Right. They want to keep them underneath it, still that same banner of the universal church.
Yes, universal church, exactly. Yes.
Wow.
And then
Well,
even now, some of those charismatic movements, they will say, well, we don't believe in Mary, we don't believe in the Catholic, doctrine, but they still wear the collar, they still wear
still
the
the same thing.
yeah, yeah,
Still
yeah.
But in America, what I noticed, especially over the last, I say, decade, that there's been more attention raised to police brutality. When it comes to the overall Black community, there's like, okay, we need to raise up, we need to fight against this. But being one who was very involved within the Protestant church during that time, I noticed that there was always like this putting a cloud over our frustration. Like, no, 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 and we see that again and again. We see the oh, you got to forgive, don't don't deal with your emotions, don't deal with retribution, justice, all the things that any other American would expect, that if a crime was committed against them, that in a court of law, that justice will be upheld. That's an expectation as an American, right? Looking at the
Yes.
Constitution, that's what you're supposed to get. But the churches are used to pacify and to keep us docile from wanting to be able to see true justice that is met. And this is what I'm seeing that he's talking about happening when there is resistance. We're going to see that resistance. So yeah, it's the same situation. We'll listen a little bit more.
You look at the impact of this missionary movement. I identify three ways that I see how it impacts Africans today. Number one, the ways in which Africans see themselves. Number two, the ways in which Africans see and engage the Western world. And then number three, the ways in which Africans view God or African theology. So let's start with the first thing, right? The ways in which Africans see themselves. When you look at the missionary movement and the results of it, and you look at in contemporary times, the ways in which Africans see themselves. Now, I hate to make these general statements about Africans, but I'm really talking particularly about West Africans, and in my context, Ghana. Right? So what the movement did was it attempted to dissolve African culture. So it left a tremendously negative impact on African identity and produced what one scholar describes as Afro-pessimism. So essentially, if it's Black anything or African anything, it's not good, right? If it's all Black, it's all whack. If it's all white, it's all right. There was a systemic devaluing of African culture, value, and traditions, right? Not in all cases, many of these traditions and such are preserved, but it is pervasive, right? When you see the legacy of colonization and the missionary movement and the whitewashing of African traditions, particularly in Ghana, right? Let me give you an example. Examples would be how when you go to school, you have to barber your hair or cut your hair. When you look at the uniforms for a lot of the school children around Ghana, right, you see that they basically look like African children going to a European boarding school. Another thing is when you look at, like I said, the school uniform, how people preach, they preach in suits because for a long time you couldn't preach in your traditional wear because it was thought to be an abomination. An overemphasis on speaking proper English, right, while devaluing sometimes local language, so much so that some children in certain schools will be sacked or punished if they are speaking the local language, right? Because the emphasis is you have to speak proper English. That makes you a civil person. That makes you a decent person. And there's sometimes an overemphasis, even today, on the external factors of what makes you, quote unquote, a Christian. One of the biggest ways this is represented is in a recent case of Achimota School. If you haven't followed the news, essentially what happened was you had these young boys, very intelligent, known as Rastas. They have locks. And they were not admitted to the school because they have locks. Fast forward, they went to court, they did all this kind of crazy stuff. The kids got admitted to school. But here's the thing. Here's the question we must ask ourselves. How is it in 2021 children that are supposed to be the future of the nation and of the world are not allowed to enter into school because they wear their hair the way it naturally grows from their head. Meanwhile, if you look at our judges and you look at the lawyers when they're on, appointed duty, they literally put on the blonde wig. If this is not a representation of the legacy of colonization, I don't know what is.
This blew me away right here. This right here just did something in my spirit.
Oh yeah.
It did something to my spirit. I mean, look at these dudes.
Yes, and that's it. You know what that is saying? We're giving you your independence, but we're still controlling you. It's the same system of law in Nigeria. You see them wear the black robe, Ghana is red and white. But Nigeria is the black and white with the blonde. At least these people there is covered. In Nigeria, they have the curly, tight blonde hair.
Wow.
Yes.
Jay Highstyle said those wigs look nappy though. Yeah, man. Yeah. That's crazy though. That's crazy. And then that young Rasta, when he's wearing his locks, he has to go to court over wearing his hair naturally. But yet these dudes, these judges could put on these white wigs, and it's a lock chain over the mind.
Yes.
And that's what I see. It's like from the top down, it's a lock chain on the mind. Yes. That's really sad. Let's listen a little bit more, because he's going to talk a little bit more about the imagery and how it's affected the actual citizens.
On one hand, kids will not be admitted in education because of the way their hair naturally grows from their head as Africans. On the other hand, in 2021, we're still putting on this blonde colonial wig. This is colonization at its best, right? Other thing is, there is an inferiority complex oftentimes of the way some Africans see themselves, and a superiority complex with Europeans. And sometimes Africans, and particularly in Ghanaians, will see themselves as Christians before being African. But you got to understand, the scriptures tell us in 1 Corinthians 15:46 that the natural came before the spiritual. So you was born black.
You was born an African before you were a Christian. And it's
I had to deal with that on my channel about 7 or 8 months ago, more Christian than black, because this idea that I'm going to say that being a Christian or being someone who is a follower of Yahusha is absent from my lineage and my identity as an Israelite. That's the problem, is we don't understand just how intricately tied the two are. It's not a competition. It's a complement. So, I love what he used that verse when he said about the natural coming first.
It's similar to the U.S. where we talk about how I'm a Christian first. But like I said, in all honesty,
you were born black or an African before you became a Christian. So you can't neglect that important part of our formation.
Hey, you're ready for a Bentley. It's gorgeous.
The second way that you see the legacy of this missionary movement is the ways in which Africans engage the Western world. The biggest way is the white savior complex. The overwhelming idea is that the whole continent, right, especially Ghana, right, is one big ghetto. And the goal is to get out anywhere, right? Anywhere you go that's white is going to be all right. If it's somewhere black, then it's whack. So it's the same mentality that a lot of us have growing up in America, particularly Black America, of like getting out the hood. You just socialize to get out. Nothing good is here. You can't do anything here. You have to simply get out. In Ghana, there's like a national kind of attitude towards Western foreigners as saviors, and regardless of race. I mean, even myself, right? I'm considered an Obruni, right, when I come to Ghana because I'm from America. And the idea is that, somebody's coming to rescue me. So much so that when you look at Africa, unfortunately, Africa's relationship with the West is either a missionary, philanthropic, or like paternal relationship. That's why you see so many leaders and so many people calling on, Trump or somebody else to come and save us. Oh, come and save us from this thing that we're doing. Please come and rescue us. Please come and blah, blah, blah. Right? That's the legacy of that missionary movement that instilled in Africans that white Jesus will come from on high and rescue you. You can't do anything for yourselves. You must rely on somebody else to come and help you out of your state of peril. Why? Because you're inferior, because you don't know anything, because blah, 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 blah. The other way that it impacts, Africans in terms of the relationship with the West is, places like the U.S. are the model, right? They're the creme de la creme. And literally, when I came to Ghana, people were asking me, why did I move from heaven to hell? Because ideas like, how could I leave this place of just like perfection? And remember, that missionary movement taught so many Africans that Europeans are the standard of perfection and civility. So if I'm coming from the West, even though I'm an African American, I'm viewed as a foreigner, a white person, an Obruni. And when I came to Ghana, people literally were baffled as like, but why did you come here? There is nothing here.
So what it did was it put Africa in a fraternal relationship with the West. When I first started coming,
Kathy, let me hear your thoughts on that. Is that perception true? I mean,
It's very true. It's
okay.
very, very true.
Okay.
Everything he's saying is true to the T. And it's so sad. It's so sad. And you know why? Just like he said, the missionary movement, that was a movement, was carefully orchestrated. Because you see, they sat around and they knew that Africa was a place of vast resources. So they sat around, and each one of them, the Europeans, they sat around and they all mapped out where they're going to go and take the dominance and dominate and control. So this is what they have done. And the Father allowed that to be so. You know why? Because just like Israel was supposed to be different. Israel was supposed to know who they are, but they didn't know who they were, their self-worth. They were always looking for other nations. They were always, asking for other nations. They either going to Egypt when there was a famine. They were always going for somebody to rescue them. It's the same thing. That's the reason why you should know that they're Israelites, because there's
Okay.
nothing have changed. Nothing
Wow.
has changed. It's the same thing. They are looking for a rescue. They have this vast land, vast resources. I would see for Nigeria. Nigeria is loaded with oil
Wow.
that that you can't even. Nigeria will be all right without anybody's help. But you know why? The Westerners put a puppet in politics because they know the resources. So they use the Westerners, they use the Fulani who are uneducated. You see, they're Muslims too. So that's a religion too, right? So they use them, uneducated, to keep people oppressed. And while you're oppressing the people, you're stealing from them. You're stealing their resources. So you want to give them Christianity, give them white Jesus. Oh, he loves you. But I'm coming to your land. I'm stealing all your resources that he has given you, that you will be all right, you and your family, and you don't have to ask anybody to rescue you. It goes deeper. It goes deeper. And that's the reason why West Africa, Africans are always looking to the West for to rescue. You know why? Because they came and said, oh, you know good, you savages. We need to help you. We need to make you civilized. This is the way civilized people are supposed to behave and look and act and talk like. And it's true. We had to speak English and we had to speak the Queen's English. That was one of the language we had to speak English. And a lot of people in my country don't know how to speak their own native dialect, but they better know how to speak that English
That's
because you
crazy.
have to. Yes. So what the brother is saying is so true. Like I said, Ghana and Nigeria are neighbors. They're brothers. So what is going on is so true. And this is the reason why where you have that self-hatred, because people look when you see white, oh, even if it's Chinese people, as long as they have light skin, they think it's white people. And you see the way they greet the people, they bow, when they see them, and the white people know that.
Mm.
You know what Putin said? The prime minister of Russia said, Why is it that black people don't like themselves? The
Wow.
West know who they are. But why is it that black people, no, not black people, Africans, they don't like themselves? Why is it that Africans are always looking for the West for help? But the West don't even regard you as human. This is what Putin said.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know, it's interesting because in Russia, a lot of us know probably about a year ago, we came across a video with a Russian choir and they were singing in their language and talking about the Negroes are sleeping. In when it was translated that the Negroes are sleeping. So it's interesting because you know they're able to see what the West has done in putting this lock and chain over our minds. But that's wild. All the things that you're saying in terms of just not even being able to know your own language, but you know English though.
English. You have to know English. You have to, and even the girls with the, shaved hair, you had to cut your hair. You had to cut your hair. You couldn't wear no earrings. You had to dress. Everybody was in a uniform, which is a good thing, being in a uniform. But like you said, and a lot of people send their children to boarding school. So they think by sending their children to boarding school, they think that's a big thing. But you're supposed to be really teaching your children, not sending them away, right? But
That's
this
right.
is what this is. It was engineered. They knew exactly what they were doing. So it was orchestrated so carefully because right now the Chinese people are in Nigeria. They well in Ghana. I would say Ghana is the only country that have done their best to not allow Islam and all these other people to come in to try to conquer, and they have maintained their independence. But Nigeria and some others is a struggle. Is a
Wow.
big struggle because
All
you
right.
still got the master, not to cut you off, you still have the colonial masters. You still have England, and England is the stronghold for Nigeria, and England was the stronghold for Ghana, but Ghana managed to pull away from that.
Yes, and that's what we're seeing with the original video that we showed. It's like, hold on a second. I'm not interested in what the UN's opinion is when it comes to morality. And if you want to take it there with the word, definitely not with the word. So you're starting to see there is a pulling away, there is a dividing and saying, I'm not
Hmm.
interested in your colonialist mentality because it's only going to lead to further and further degradation. That
Yes.
and that's a beautiful thing. It truly is. He's got a
Hmm.
few more minutes that I want to see because every part of what he said I felt like was very significant. So I'm going to show
Hmm.
this. We got a few more minutes on it.
Hmm.
Went to Ghana. We met some good people, and eventually, when we started our organization, we invited one person to kind of like be a contractor in what we were doing. So the person would help us from time to time whenever we brought groups. We would give them money and what may have you. And then fast forward to maybe like 6 years later, my colleague gets an email from this person, and the person is like cursing us, right? We are wicked people, we're evil, um, blah 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 blah. And the person essentially said that we wasn't taking care of them the way that we were supposed to. The person has a child that we were not taking care of. We weren't giving them sufficient money to take care of their child, and so essentially they're blaming us for their issues. And eventually we stopped working with this individual. But the idea was that because we are coming from America, our goal is to take care of you financially and everything else. Make sure that you're always taken care of. Like that's the mentality, unfortunately, that so many of our people have as a result of that legacy of colonization and even the missionary movement. That when you're coming from the West, you're supposed to take care of us. And it's unfortunate, but it's real. Um, so so in addition to right the ways in which Africans see themselves and the ways in which Africans engage the world, the last thing is the ways in which Africans view God or African theology. There is a pervasive notion, especially when you come to Ghana, not just Ghana, but a lot of West Africa, especially places that have been colonized. God is white and the devil is black, right? You will come and you'll see the white Jesus everywhere. And many people emphatically believe that Jesus is white. In fact, when we talk to many of the young kids that we connect with, you ask them, what color is Jesus? They say he's a white man. What is the devil? He's a black man. And I remember back in the day, I was having a conversation with some pastors, and they was telling me that for long, even this idea that there was a phrase, I'm sure it was a phrase in tree or something like that, but translated into English, it says that if you are on your way to church and you see a white man, you can go home because you've seen God. This is the mentality that literally still exists today, right? So whiteness becomes synonymous with divinity, pureness, good intentions, honesty, trustworthiness, the opposite of what it means to be black. Africans identify as Christian first before African. And like I said, most of this is the European standard or the European definition of what it means to be Christian. And that leads to an overemphasis on that stuff I talked about, like hair, the way you dress, the way you talk, whether or not you have locks or not, and all of this stupid stuff, right? Acting civil or being a European. African theology becomes whitewashed with an overemphasis on conversion and not enough on like really utilizing scriptural truths to transform your society
and deal with issues like food insecurity, environmental issues like doom soil, galamsey, or like illegal mining, the polluted waterways, and what may have you. So all it means to be Christian in Ghana means to just you go to church or whatever. So it's an irrelevant, sometimes it's an irrelevant religion that's really tied to church.
Now, I wanted to pause right there because I thought what he said was extremely interesting when he talked about the focus on the over focus on conversion. Now, I was listening to brother the Orthodox Moore. Shout out to the Orthodox Moore, and he had posted a debate with Vocab Malone and a brother from Yasharal a couple of days ago. I guess his debate was last year. And they were talking about the whole idea of land promise. That was what the debate was supposed to be about, whether or not Israel still has land promises. But yet vocab kept going into the whole salvific portion of the scripture, kept emphasizing salvation, salvation, salvation. And the whole message, the whole point of the debate was to talk about whether or not Yasharal still has the promises of land in the prophetic, in the future. Now, when he said what he just said in terms of the overfocus of conversion, that's what it made me think about. Because it seems to me that in Christendom, westernized Christendom, that is the only thing that Black people are allowed to know about is the plan of salvation. We can't know about anything else in the scripture relating to, as this brother said, how we take care of our neighbors, how we take care of our community, how we manage our money, how we, how we look at the world overall, how we look at the nations. We can't look at justice. We can't look at anything except the sweet by and by. And are we saved? And so I thought what he said there was interesting. What are your thoughts about this whole over focus on conversion and not being active elsewhere?
Yeah, and it's true, and is a part of that propaganda is the missionary movement, like he keeps saying, is the missionary movement, and it was carefully thought of, it was carefully planned out. So yes, and even when I was going to church and I was a Christian, oh yeah, Jesus says, we, just, if, turn the other cheek if somebody did you wrong. And it's true, and there's nothing wrong with we knowing that Jesus, Yahushua saved. Yes, we have to know that because, he said he's the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody comes to the Father except through him. But with what the missionary movement did is focus on not knowing Yahushua as the way, the truth, but knowing Yahushua in Catholicism, in their ritual, in penance, in going to church and wearing your chaplet, whatever it is. That's what they are real. That's what the conversion is. The conversion is not really about being converted from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not the conversion they're talking about because their salvation is by works, it's not through Yahushua. So
right.
That's for most Catholics. They go to they go to confession, confess their sins, and they think they're all right. And well, who is Jesus? The same Jesus that they promote, but who is he? It's really abstract to them.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of people in Africa, West Africa, Ghana, or like Nigeria. Jesus is very abstract to them. He's abstract because
Wow.
it's an illusion of what somebody have told you, but you
Mm,
don't have really a deep experience. And
wow.
that's the reason why some of the people that go to church on Sunday, but then they will go to the shrine or they'll go into ancestral worship and doing all kinds of stuff. Because
Yep.
guess what? That's what Catholicism brought to Africa in the form of religion,
Right.
knowing God. But it's not the Yah of the Bible that they brought to these people. It's their pagan God. It's the idol worshiping, right? So
That's right.
that's why an average African, Nigerian or Ghanaian, West Africa, when you talk about, oh, go to church, and then you have this pastors, the prosperity preaching pastors, which, the Western taught them to how to reap, steal from the people, so, but, you struggling, you don't have a light in your house and your children, you can't pay their school fees, but you bring the tithes to the church.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Forever bringing them tithes, and
Yes.
depending on
Okay.
what scripture you turn to, that's how much you need to bring in for your
Thank
extra
you.
offering.
Okay. So, like the brother said, people need clean water. People need, to have to better themselves. People need, they have resources to be able to, but again, you have the government that are puppets that are put in place to oppress the people. So people are not able to use the resources. Then when they go back to church, Jesus saved, Jesus loves you, but it's not Yahusha they're talking about.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's what when you ask a Catholic person about, going to heaven, they're like, what? Well, who's Jesus? Oh, Jesus is the Son of God. Well, do you believe that you have to know him to have a personal relationship? That's like, what is that? I go to church. I
right.
pray to Mary. I say the rosary. I go take, communion, Eucharist.
Wow.
That's what they brought to Africa. And it's so sad. And I'm glad you brought this topic up because, and a lot of our people are still in that bondage.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. A lot of our people are still in this bondage. And that's why I love all the points that he brought out. And I said, this is necessary for us to see because being that a lot of us, a lot of the audience here is in the US. I know we have some dispersed into different parts, but we need to have a deeper understanding of how each of us has dealt with the colonialist powers so that we can understand how to unify, how to brainstorm and come together. And we're going to talk about that when this video is done. I'm going to give a few more minutes and we're going to talk about brainstorming some effective ways in which we can help our
Mhm.
brothers and sisters in West Africa with all this that they're going through.
So
and these are a lot of the leaders too, right? And so that's why you see some of the challenges that we have. It doesn't mean that in order to have a healthy nation, you have to make it a Christian nation, but it is to say that how is it that we can have so much Christians in this nation, but yet we have so many issues that go unaddressed, right? That's the thing. And it's because when you look at that missionary movement, the reality is the emphasis was on Europe empowering its territories and making all subjects to Christ, but it wasn't interested in empowering Africans, generally speaking. It was interested in empowering its own self-interest. So where do we go from here? I think it's three things that we need to do from here. Number one, we need to reform our theology, not reform theology, but reform our theology. Um, the African has to define God for himself and define the God of the African through his own story and his own context. Um, really have to be conscious about developing an African consciousness while really reevaluating the legacies from which we get an understanding of God. The second thing is we have to reconstruct our identity, right? It's time for Africans to define themselves for themselves, revisit the cultural values that make up the vital elements of society. Ask, how is it that Africans have built pyramids, reigned in powerful kingdoms, had the ingenuity to create templates that the Westerners used to take, such as language, science? You look at Timbuktu, how people literally came from all around the world to study. How is it that Africans to do this can do all of this, right? But yet now in 2021, we got to call on the EU or the US to give us some money to fix a light or to fix some street, bumper rails. That's ridiculous. We have to reconstruct identity, not being individuals that are waiting on somebody else to rescue us, but realizing that God has given us everything we need to do what we need to do for ourselves by ourselves. The last thing is Africans really need to love ourselves for who God has created us. Last but not least, I really think that we have to reconnect with the African diaspora. You know what I'm saying? We all have such a shared story that we can learn from one another. I mean, for example, if you ask us as Black folks in America how the story will end when you have people that have had their histories erased, their identities contorted through someone else's lens, and the devaluing of culture and blah 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 blah, we can tell you how the story is going to end, and it's not good. So we as Africans in the diaspora can really help our African brothers and sisters to know how this story will play out in order to prevent it from happening in the same way that it's happened in these other places. And I think that the way we do this is simply by focusing on the youth. In a few years, the youngest population in the world will be on the African continent. Most people in Africa will be under 40 years old in a few years from now. So when we focus on the youth and really helping them to rewrite their own histories, their own legacies, yes, there's a lot of historical and economic stuff that needs to be done, but the first step is really creating a sense of identity. And so I think that everybody can do their part. And at the end of this video, I'm going to list you some resources, some books that you can start reading right now to just begin educating yourself about the legacy of the missionary movement, the legacy of colonization, how it has negatively impacted Africans, how we can move away from that. So let's start today. You know what I'm saying? Let's do something different. Let's start telling our own stories through our own voices so that we can shape our own present as we recreate our own future.
Wow, that was powerful. I got to give a shout out to this brother Tim Swain. I actually, I never even knew.
Well done. Yes, you did a good job.
He did an amazing job. I didn't know about this brother till a few days ago, but it came up in my feed. And when I saw this, I said, man, let me check it out. And it just blew me away. I got to give a shout out to him because he's out there and he's laboring and he's doing the real work. But I love the fact that he was so honest about the different concerns that he's seeing right there in the nation. And yet he's offering the solutions. I love what he said, especially about dealing with the youth. Because even here in the Virgin Islands, like, you know, every culture, we have microcultures, right, within our larger culture as Africans, as Israelites. And when I see my brothers and sisters in this portion of the diaspora, I see there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration, a lot of, you know, bickering between one another. And when I look at the youth, that's my perspective. It's like we need to get a hold of the youth to change the trajectory, change the mindset for the next generation. Because if we don't do that, then it's going to continue to be perpetual colonization of the mind. Colonization is not always open. You know, a lot of it was open, you know, a couple hundred years ago. But so much of the colonization that takes place now is very subtle, and it's always in the marketplace. It's always about who is controlling the dollar. And so even here we have that problem where we have our people that are on the low rung of the totem pole, and we have the Gentiles that they own the businesses, they own the grocery stores, they own, you know, the doctor's offices and the engineering offices, and they own all those things. And so you have, I mean, when I talk about, you have some of the most beautiful homes that are here in the world. And yet the majority of our people aren't living in them. Okay, our people are living in the towns, living in the dilapidated properties, living in the housing sections. And I said, no, we got to deal with the youth. So that's what we're doing out here is we're touching the youth with music, with orchestral music, and giving them opportunities here in the VI. What are some of the things that we can do, particularly in your opinion, as a Nigerian Israelite woman? You have grown up in this culture. What are some of the things that you see are ways in which we can support one another to get us out of the colonialist mind?
Oh, my sister, we'll be here all night. But the Father is in control. I mean, the thing, sometimes I cry, sometimes it's a burden because I have family members that are, I mean, Most of my family are still there. And I have family that are here or into Catholicism. You try to witness to them, but they wouldn't hear. They just stuck. They just stuck. So I think the only thing I can really say is maybe as because I know you're doing this fasting thing every month. Maybe we can incorporate that and ask the Father to show us in which way to go. Because I have to tell you the truth, me and my daughter will talk about it sometimes. I get so not discouraged, but I'm like, Father, but those are your people over there too. But how do we connect? How do we get them to see who they are? But people are so destitute and so impoverished. So when you're telling them about the Most High and that the Israelite, that they are people of the Bible, they're like, oh yeah, 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 I know that, but I need food. I need school fees for my children. I don't have a place to live. It's like you're telling them the solution is spiritual. You know, but yeah, they understand that because you know why? They go to church. The,
Right.
the missionary movement brought them Christianity, so they go to church, but there's no connection between them and the Father,
Right.
except for, what they have been taught. So like the brother said, and everything, I would take it spiritually because you know why? The Bible says, unless the Yahuwah builds the house, those that build it labor in vain.
Right. That's
You
true.
know? So we have to pray, and as we pray and we cry out to the Father to show us, because in this last days that we are in, He said, greater works He did, we shall do. There's
Yeah.
more work to be done.
That it truly is. And it's interesting that you say that because I was actually sharing this video with my teenagers yesterday. And I was asking my 13-year-old Malachi, I said, so Mal, what do you think about this video? Like, what do you think is the solution to the problems that, this man is outlining in Ghana? And he looks at me with the simplicity of the 13-year-old and he says, we can only trust the Most High. That's what he said. He said, we have to, he said, because this is a spiritual problem.
It is.
And just in his 13-year-old self, he said, that's what I really, this is in at the core of what we're dealing with as a people. It's
Yes,
spiritual.
it's spiritual.
In the
It's
same
even
way,
our people over here is the same way. Our people over here, me and my friend, we were talking of all the people that, most people that are not, of black race. But the other people are saying no. They're standing up no to the lollipop, no to the jab. But then they will put our people in the front line, and they will come and say, "Oh yes," and and I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" But the other races would say no. They will walk off their job. They say, "I'm not going there." But our people are
mhm,
going. Is there spiritual problem like your son? Is there spiritual problem? And the spiritual problem is need spiritual remedy, which only Abba Yah
yeah,
can do, and do his great work in this last day. Because my sister, I live it. I mean, I try to tell my cousin, he's doing a crusade, on deliverance because of the stronghold, generational wickedness, witchcraft. You know, people can move up. No progress in life. Untimely death. Everywhere you turn around, that person is dead. This is dead. That person dropped dead. That person dropped dead. The whole entire community, so they want to do a crusade. I said, but you, and of course, JC is the main theme. I said, but you doing a crusade, but what are you trying to tell the people? You want them to be delivered from all of this, spiritual wickedness, spiritual disease you're talking about. But how do you think they're going to be delivered? Because you're still using the same JC, because
mhm.
I have witnessed to him. What don't you think that you need to be, telling the people, let them make the connection that the Most High is real?
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And the thing is too is that I believe that I'm a person who believes that the root of it starts with having a correct understanding of who our Savior is, having him
Hmm.
as the cornerstone, Yahushua HaMashiach. But I'm also very much a boots to the ground type of person. I believe that you have to marry the spiritual with the practical. And so some of the things that he talked about, which is helping the community to be able to feed and plant wells and do things to build up the local economy is so important. And so we need to do our best to try to partner with as many brothers and sisters who are of a renewed mind, who are changing in their mindset, because not everybody is still in that slumber. I was speaking with a sister who was also from Nigeria. She was supposed to join us in the prayer movement and she couldn't, but she's a young sister. You know, she's not fully there yet. She's very young in the faith, but she sees what's going on between race relations in the U.S. and these Europeans. And so she said to me that it was not until a few years ago that she even knew that racism existed. She didn't even know that word as a Nigerian, which was very interesting to me. She said, I didn't even know that word existed. I didn't know what racism was until I got plugged into the Western media and started to see the race relations that were going on. So I thought that was so interesting. But now she is using her platform to show the micro racism that is, you know, that's oftentimes overlooked. So she's speaking to her younger generation. She's dealing with the TikTokers, and she's talking about things like as simple as how Western perceptions of beauty are the standard. She's talking about how Africans and the cornrows and the braids is being taken over by Europeans and trying to be co-opted by them as though they're the originators. So I think on every level that we need to break chains as much as we can by breaking the chains in the minds of our people first. And so, you know, I'm just loving what this whole dynamic is, and bringing awareness, because so many of our brothers and sisters, they live from one day to the next not aware that all of these things are controlling factors in the puppeteering of our community. So we have to bring awareness. We have to pray that chains are broken, and then we have to connect with brothers and sisters who are doing the laborious work of actually helping to break those chains and helping our brothers and sisters throughout the diaspora see that we don't need anybody but the Most High and his Savior, our Savior, Yahushua HaMashiach, for the forgiveness of our sins so that we can rebuild. Because when Babylon falls, there will be rebuilding. There will be rebuilding, but the rebuilding, Yasharal, Esau is the end of the world, but Jacob is the beginning.
Yes.
So we have to take these things seriously, and even in our own lives, we have to be able to take things like our finances. I get it that the trajectory of the money systems are changing, but even with the little that we have to remember that Yahuwah is sovereign. He is the Most High. And so we can't look at all the things that are happening with the Great Reset. We can't look at what's happening with the jab and get stuck there. Yes, we report it. Yes, we keep our eyes as watchmen on the walls, but we also understand that the victory goes beyond that. The victory lies ahead. And that's why we have to renew our minds now for the preparation of kingdom kingdom authority that will be given to Jacob. Yes, there will be land given to us. How are we going to take care of that land? Oh, we can't go in with a colonialist mindset when the land is renewed to us. Yes, sis, give me your final thoughts before we get ready to wrap it up. What do you have to say?
I think, you pretty much said. I think that all that's a good idea. Because the Bible says, "Occupy till he comes." So we still have to occupy. We still have to do the work, and while it's day, because no one works at night. So we have to. So whatever opportunity, the Father opened this door, this dialogue, so that people can understand a little bit of Ghana, Nigeria, West Africa, Congo, and let our brothers over here know that those are your people over there too. But they have made it so that we have this hatred towards each other, So they're like, oh, the Africans, oh, the Americans, and oh no, the blacks. That's what they did, So we have to break that barrier, so that I'm the type of person. I've been here since 1983. I went to school and high school, whatever. So I kind of interrelate with all the different people. So I mean, I have friends that are Black Americans, And she's like a sister to me more than my own sister. And we tease each other. She said, you know what? She said, I believe we have some relations, because me and her we click. I've known her for like 20 something years. You know what I mean? So we have to break that barrier of when you see somebody from Africa, don't just assume, so, oh, those Africans or those Hamites, just
Yeah.
try to get to understand who they are,
Yes.
and then just like, Africans, when don't go by what you heard about Black Americans and, what the media portray. You understand what I'm saying? So you get, if if you know somebody in your path who's a Black American African, dialogue,
Yes.
because at the end of the day, we
That's
are from the same, we the same, rather than to say, oh, your nose up in, oh, that's Africa, oh, that's Black Americans. Dialogue with that person. Because you'll be surprised. You guys might even be interrelated somehow. So I think that's the best way for us to do that, and not just be exclusive, like, oh, us here, them over there, Africans. Just, yes, people.
That's right.
And some of them have not come to know who they are. But those of us who have been, given the privilege and been enlightened and insight, that we remain humble and
Yes.
ask the Father to use us to reach out to them, so that when we start telling them about the Most High, it won't be, so they'll be receptive. It won't come off as, prideful and, oh, those Africans, or what they eat, or Americans, they like this cheese, they like that. No, let's break all of that. Let's just leave all of that.
Yeah.
Just talk from whoever okay, Nigeria, okay, from, Georgia. Tell me, how did you grow up? Tell me, what, dialogue.
Yes.
You
I love
know,
I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying. Get to know one another. If
hmm
we can get to know one another instead of the generalizations, because we know that there has been so much stereotypes. As a matter of fact, I want to plug in my sister April Barnwell, because she just got finished doing a video that's called the ABCs of Africa. You guys can find it on the 714movement.com under Youth to Yah, because she goes in through animation and shows the common misconceptions about Africa. Africa is a country, for one. That's one of the biggest misconceptions that we have as a people, that it's impoverished, that there's there's no stability. It's always fighting and war. And she breaks down in a very, beautiful way for the youth that no, all of these misconceptions are wrong. We need to retell the narrative to our story, because in the end, we know that it's only been put that way through the colonialists so that we can be divided. And that's why they even use the language, united we stand, divided we fall, because they understood that as long as they stay united, they will be together. And as long as they could divide us, then we
fall. Yes.
we would be ripe for the killing. But now we see Yahuwah has them turning on themselves. And so it's important for us to say, okay, let's gather together, let's unite, let's learn, relearn. It says learn, unlearn, and relearn. Shout out to TCA on that. But I'm serious, family. We have to do the work. We have to get to know one another. We have to one another. We have to be our brother's keeper and hold each other up, because it's so important as Yahuwah is waking our brothers and sisters up throughout the entire world, that we on the front lines standing as salt and light to even our brothers and sisters. But Sister Kathy, I want to thank you so much for coming on and giving
Oh,
your
it's a pleasure. Oh, I mean, I love this, Yeah, I mean, this is awesome. This is awesome. And, I just want to encourage everybody, to stay focused, don't believe the lie. We all the same. We all the children of the Most High. He put us here so we could be a light and a salt, to the nations. And, let's pray for our brothers and sisters in Africa, this for wherever they are scattered throughout the four corners. Let's pray for them, because we're going to be surprised who we see and who we don't see, So
Absolutely.
on that day.
Well, thanks so much again. And family, thank y'all for coming through. Definitely get those likes up, get those shares up. Thank you to those of you who gave in the super chat tonight. Thank you for the cash apps. I appreciate y'all very much. And you know what I say, family, is always love yourselves without hating your enemies, family. And until next time, God bless.
Shalom. Bye bye.